I began working this way a lot with the Coro Center for Civic Leadership, where I was a staff member.
Yeah.
And businesses began getting interested, and I actually was then invited to start working in this graphic way in lots of different companies.
Yes, yes. So it kind of started where you were taking pictures from the landscape architect way of doing things involving people. And then you started to see that this could be applied in businesses and in the community. It seems like the Presidio is a very large project and many people involved. And yet the point of it actually wasn't that picture, right? It was about
about the dialogue. It was about
talking,
the exchange of people. Yeah.
Feeling heard, being in a place where they felt people wanted to hear what they were talking about, what their values, what uses they could imagine, and a place where they had a chance to express the issues of concern. Do you feel that through this process, the public servants, the municipalities, the national service staff, in fact, were able to hear these things, and did pictures help?
Yeah, well, all of the planning staff for the Presidio went to all these meetings. And so they got to actually hear the public in all these different iterations.
Yeah.
We then went even farther. We had one of the biggest events planning events that I've been a part of out on one of the piers at Fort Mason.
Yeah.
And in one weekend, we installed, halfway through the planning process, something like a dozen different graphic booths showing all the different aspects of the planning. And we created a mural factory and created cross-sections of the Presidio. We looked at how the buildings, the residential buildings, would be rehabbed. We looked at all kinds of challenges of recreational use, et cetera. And about 250 people or more from the community came, and we had interactive ways of gathering their information. So this visual way of working actually has been pretty highly developed as a way of doing community visioning and community processes.
How do you think that this interacting with the pictures helps to further the dialogue so that people can express things that perhaps they wouldn't have expressed before? How does that happen? Why do pictures pull us out of ourselves in that kind of way?
Well, part of what has really worked is getting a group of people who've got a vision or a strategy to think about picturing it and then asking them, all right, what would be the appropriate graphic way to do it?
Yeah.
Now, what that does is it invites people to start thinking about how they organize complex ideas in their mind. So we got started with the very big processes at National Semiconductor. When they were almost bankrupt in 1990, they had bought Fairchild Semiconductor and were really struggling to make sense out of it. And they brought in Gil Amelio, who was this physicist who had 21 patents and really had an idea. He turned around a prior semiconductor company. And he had a vision and wanted to present it to his people, but it was a technical vision. It was like a classic turnaround. And the people who were asked to support it wanted to actually bring this to life in the way that you were talking about.
Wow. So now I was in Intel, and we were not using pictures. Maybe you want to help us go and show us how this happened. But let me just say a few words. At Intel, Intel is one of the leading companies in the Valley. National Semiconductor was a big competitor, and we were using PowerPoints and text. And so it blows my mind that National Semiconductor would have gone all the way out to think about using these pictures in crazy San Francisco style. How did they bring you into straight blue collar? I mean, really, it was like people are pretty straight in the semiconductor companies.
Well, the vision that Gil Amelio was putting forth actually was a very persuasive vision. It was basically to take a company that had 4,000 different products, but no central processing unit, and actually go upscale by rationalizing the portfolio and working on some very distinct parts of the whole area that was needed for computing, like input, output, energy management, that kind of thing. So,
Oh, but David, if it was so straightforward, why did he need pictures?
well, he wasn't sure that he needed pictures, but his change team did. So they had gone to a workshop on doing this visual way of working, and they asked me to create this picture, the result of what you're seeing here. But it started as a small picture that I shared with the change team, and the main consultant with National, Bob Miles, who was a Harvard Business School guy who'd come out and was working with Gil Amelio, he looked at this 8-foot-long picture and he says, look, it's got to be twice as long, and it's got to have all these question marks in the middle. And it was the time of re-engineering. A lot of people were re-engineering. So what we did on this large mural that you now see was we put the current state picture on the left and the vision on the right. However, to the point about the imagery, I saw that when I was looking at the vision, that what Gil really was saying is we want to take kind of a space barge and turn it into the Enterprise.
A space barge?
Well, a spaceship that was a space barge. So let me come back over here and show you this.
So let me recap. There was this original vision where Gil Amelio is saying, we want to become the spaceship Enterprise. And then we was just starting with a space barge. And the big question was, how do we get from here to there?
Yeah.
And your challenge was really to help people build that picture together about how to transform the barge into the Enterprise.
Exactly.
Okay, tell us.
And they argued about whether or not, and I've got this picture here on my computer again, if you can look at it, the picture on the left is the unassembled spaceship with its fuel rods and everything there, and it hasn't taken off.
Can we zoom in? I'd like to see what's going on there.
Yeah, we can zoom in.
I always wanted to know what a space barge looked like.
Well, it's not actually assembled. You don't have, for instance, the rockets of commitment and empowerment. We actually had people argue about how much the core competencies, these fuel rods, were in. So that's actually a little graph of what they had. The values of the windows that are on the ground. The organization is on top, and all the marketing messages are along there. But after a year of input at these leading change meetings, look what they ended up doing. The spaceship took off.
Okay.
It took off, and now the projects that were supporting it were more defined. The central part was more defined. The vision on the right changed in a couple of key instances. This went through 4 years of iterations. And at the end of this time, they had 95% vision recognition worldwide. It was the first time their assembly plant people in Malacca and Indonesia ever really understood what they were doing. And the folks in Scotland and other places really liked it as well.
Now, this is Gil Amelio's on-ramp where he was recognized as a turnaround artist. He took National Semiconductor from near bankruptcy to one of the most admired companies, and he used it as a launch pad to actually get to Apple Computer right after that, I think. So
that is another whole story, which we won't go into.
No. Can we zoom into what happened? I want to follow through. You know, it's not about the pictures in the end. It's about what people do after this. How did...
Well,
okay, Malacca, they knew about
the pictures.
Yeah.
It's about co-creating understanding.